Ethan's Puppet Show. Ethan, age 10, had been talking about it for weeks, tugging at his mother's sleeve every time they passed the Colorado Public Library's glass doors. His cardboard box of homemade puppets, lions whose manes were cut with kindergarten scissors, elephants whose trunks drooped with tired glue, and one proud owl with 2 different button eyes, was practically an extension of him. He carried it like a treasure chest. If anyone asked what was inside, he'd straighten up and say, "My cast." What he wanted more than anything was to put on a puppet show at the library. The library director, Penelope Hart, had worked at the library for 26 years. She'd arrived right out of library school, back when her hair was still dark brown, and she kept it in a tight bun to look older and more authoritative. Now, her hair was streaked with silver, and the bun had softened into a loose twist. Her reputation was that she ran the library with great respect for human dignity. She had seen every kind of patron: children who skipped through the doors as if entering a second home, retirees seeking a warm place to read the newspaper, teens who swore they weren't studying but kept returning to the same table every afternoon. But she had a special fondness for the children who were shy and hopeful at the same time, the ones who appeared to have whole worlds tucked into their pockets. Ethan, she could tell at once, was one of those. He approached her desk one afternoon with the stiff determination of someone about to attempt a very large thing. "Excuse me," he said, hugging his box tight against his chest. "Could I put on a puppet show here for people, if they want to watch?" Penelope looked down at him over the rims of her glasses. For a moment, she saw her younger self in him, the version who used to tell elaborate stories to an audience of stuffed animals, convinced they appreciated every word. She softened, though only slightly. "Fine," she said. Ethan blinked, surprised, almost suspicious of how simple the answer was. Then he bowed his head in gratitude. Penelope had never seen a child bow before, and raced to the meeting room she unlocked for him. She went about her work that day with half an ear tuned to the faint rustling sounds coming from behind the meeting room door. She heard tape being torn, tiny gasps of alarm followed by muffled laughter, and the scrape of a chair being dragged. She wondered what he was building in there. When the small audience wandered in, parents fresh from errands, a retiree with a cup of coffee, 2 teenagers drifting in as though by accident, Penelope slipped to the back of the room and leaned against the doorframe. Ethan's stage was a cardboard box draped in blue construction paper, set carefully on the edge of a table. He began with a cracked but brave voice. At first the puppets wobbled like nervous actors. The owl nearly toppled off the stage. The lion rotated in a slow, unintended ballet. But Ethan kept going, narrating with earnestness that pushed past the flaws. And something happened. The audience leaned in. They let themselves be carried by a child's sincerity. Giggles warmed into laughter. The teenagers grinned despite themselves. When the show ended, the applause surprised Ethan. It was louder, fuller, more honest than he had dared imagine. He bowed twice, once for the audience, once for himself, and packed up his cast with careful reverence. Penelope caught his eye as he left, and he waved with a shy pride that stayed with her for the rest of the day. A few months later, Ethan returned. Penelope was repairing a frayed spine on a well-loved paperback when she heard the softest "Hello?" She looked up to find him standing there again, the puppet box in his hands. "I came to thank you," he said. Penelope set down her tape. Something in his posture, straight, formal, as if he were bracing himself to say something important, made her pay full attention. "Today is my birthday," he continued. He lifted the box slightly, almost as though presenting it. "And this is the place I most wanted to be." Penelope wasn't a woman who cried easily. Over the years, she had learned to let emotions slide past her like breezes through the stacks. But something about those words made her chest tighten. Ethan went on. "Last year, on my birthday, we didn't have a home. We stayed wherever we could. My puppets and this library were the only things that felt safe." He glanced around, the windows bright with mountain sun, the shelves rising like steady cliffs, the soft rustling of pages and people. "But now we have a place. We're not homeless anymore. And I wanted to come back here on my birthday to say thank you for letting me make something happy." Penelope wished she could say something wise, something that belonged in a book. But nothing seemed adequate. So she leaned forward and spoke in a low, steady voice. "I'm glad you're here, Ethan. And I'm glad you're home." He smiled, small but glowing, and she realized there were moments when a library wasn't just a building. It was refuge. It was celebration. It was the tiny stage where a boy could make a lion spin and an owl blink crookedly and somehow make strangers feel joy. As Ethan walked through the children's room, Penelope noticed the owl puppet peeking out of the box. She could have sworn its mismatched eyes flickered with mischief. She returned to her desk, picked up her tape, and sat with the quiet thought that the world was a better place for having children brave enough to ask for stages, and libraries willing to say, "Fine." Written by Phil Shapiro. Inspired by a true story at the Anythink Libraries in Colorado. This story is donated to the public domain. http://tinyurl.com/stories of kindness and courage.